Welcome to the 5-Star Retirement Show with Patrick Mueller, best-selling co-author of Dare to Succeed and president of Bella Advisors. Today, he'll be sharing his 5-star retirement formula, including lifetime income planning, investment planning, tax planning, healthcare planning, and legacy planning. Here's Chris Monroe and Patrick Mueller.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of 5-Star Retirement and Financial Freedom. It's Chris Monroe alongside Patrick Mueller of Bella Advisors, the extraordinarily handsome and debonair gentleman that is the proprietor of Atlanta's premier retirement guidance system.
I love it, man. You always make me feel so good.
Right?
Yeah.
Right? That's what I'm here to do.
Yeah, I walk out of here and I'm like, man, I feel good about myself today.
But, you know, what you do for people is something that I love. You have a heart of somebody that really wants to help somebody. And I think that's why you and I click so well is that, you know, we've both been around salespeople our whole life. And there's nothing wrong with salespeople. But when you're really focused on helping somebody.
That's right.
You know, it just changes the entire conversation. And I'm the same way. I sold real estate for a while, and I always said, I am not my license said salesperson, but I wasn't selling anything. I was trying to guide you into the home that you could actually afford, that met your needs, et cetera. So,
yeah, I read a really good book when I was first starting out in my career when I was like 19 years old. And I had a very bad self-image when it came to selling and things like that. And things started changing for me. I read the Zig Ziglar book called See You at the Top. And there was a phrase that was in that book that I still do today, which is if you help enough other people get what they want, you'll eventually get what you want. And it completely made sense to me. And so that's what I do in every single situation is, you can have a lot of problems and stuff like that going on, but I always take those things and put them in the back seat and then focus on the person that I was sitting in front of to make sure that I was helping them and I was solving their problems. And then everything changed in my life. It's
amazing because it's a value, you know, it's a value to help someone. And really that's what we're all here for, you know, on this earth is to help one another. And that's why, you know, when you're talking about something as big as your life savings, your nest egg, your retirement fund, what you don't know is what really gets people in trouble a lot.
That's right. And it's just one of those things. You don't know what you don't know. And that's what makes us so valuable and what it is that we do and the process that we walk everybody through. We have the 5-star retirement planning process that we walk everybody through to make sure that you're always going to be okay. Because we've been through this hundreds of times and we know the pitfalls to watch out for. And you got to make sure you know what these things are, especially if you're doing stuff yourself or you've just been working with a broker that's calling themselves an advisor. I mean, I'm sure they're nice, but you got to work with somebody that does retirement planning and focuses on this stuff because that's what we're here to do is to make sure you're going to be successful in your retirement. And how many times do we have a shot at making it successful going through retirement?
Yeah, that's true. We don't get to, and we could say that for life too, right?
That's right.
I mean, we don't get too many shots. We get one. And, you know, and I think you brought up a good point about brokers. Again, what does a broker do? A broker is generally going to sell products that are going to make them money.
That's right.
You know, that they're going to steer you toward those products. And as long as you know that up front, but I don't think a lot of people know that. They think that and especially somebody and let's put it this way, if a spouse dies, and let's say it's the husband and he's the one that's you know, typically in past generations, the man handled the money. And all of a sudden you have a widowed spouse that has to now deal with this. Well, my broker takes care of that, but she doesn't really know, you know, how much money that they're charging. You know, are you in the right investments? Are you protected from loss? And that's what I like about the Bella Advisors approach so much.
And this, you know, you never hear me badmouth anybody, but you'll hear me tell you like it is. That's all stockbrokers did is they changed their name from stockbroker to financial advisor. And there is no license to call yourself a financial advisor.
Really?
Nothing else changed.
So you have to have a license to do hair and nails, but you don't have to have a license. I mean, literally, that's how silly a lot of this stuff is in our society. Is you need licenses for all these other things, but yet you can, you know, I could open up a thing today saying Chris Monroe's financial advisor house and whatever with no experience.
no experience.
Wow.
And you see that every single day. People trying to give people financial advice, but all they really have is a license to buy and sell securities, or all they have is an insurance license. But there's over 300 different financial designations that somebody can call themselves a financial professional in one form or another. So who in the world do you talk to? And
not your Uncle Vito. Not your Uncle Vito. They're going to want to give you financial advice.
Yeah, especially if your uncle's name is Vito.
I've got a hot tip for you. Uncle Vinny. Uncle Vinny. I got a hot tip for you. No, I mean, everybody's got an opinion on that kind of thing. And, things have changed so much in the past 30, 40, 50 years in the financial world. I mean, you still have the core investment vehicles, but there have been so many other things that have been introduced into the markets that weren't there, several decades ago.
It's like, just even the last decade.
Right.
So many things that are out there today that can protect people's money, and we can get tied to the stock market and get, we're not going to get all the upside from the stock market, but we can get 50, 60, 70% of the growth without taking a downside loss when the markets are down. People just don't realize stuff like that is out there. When you're getting closer to retirement, it's more and more important to have that money protected from losing at this stage, especially when we're at all-time market highs. So, you might not be getting those extra few points from the market growth, but who cares? It's way more important to protect from those big downside losses. You don't want to be on the home stretch of retirement or into the first few years of retirement and the market takes a 50% hit like it did back in 2008 and 2001, and that affect your whole retirement.
I've been, speaking of all-time highs, I read Market Watch and CNBC and Fox Business and, try to keep up with what's going on. And I'm seeing far more articles to maintaining bullish in 2020 than anything else. I know you've seen a couple of people that are saying other things. And, of course, there have been predictions. If I go back, and I love to go back and look at articles because everybody's beyond an expert today. The market's going to crash in 2019. Yes. The market's going to crash in 2018. The market's, however, at some point, there is going to be, call it a correction, call it a crash, call it a whatever. It's going to happen.
Yes.
And we just don't know, we hope and we pray that 2020 will be a start of a great new decade for us. But, anything can happen,
We're in a new day and time. I mean, the craziest stuff is happening, whether it be in the markets or politically or around the world. We've never seen stuff like this before that we're kind of going, I mean, some stuff we probably have, but, and here's the thing with all these predictions and all these so-called gurus and stuff like that are out there and these huge money managers and their predictions and all that stuff, they don't know.
Right.
They don't know. Their crystal ball works just as good as my crystal ball does at the office. And I do have a crystal ball. Like you come into the office, you'll see the crystal ball that I got. And it works just as good as everybody else's does. I don't have a magic 8 ball, but I should.
We will take care of that. We'll get you one for your office.
Yeah, we do.
But no, you're exactly right. I mean, we just don't know what's going to happen. We can look at trends. We can look at the one thing that we do know for sure is going to happen is that this bull market will come to an end at some point.
Right. So
we do know that.
When's it going to happen, and how's it going to affect you when it does happen? How are you going to protect yourself now when those things do happen? And this is what you got to understand. This is why we do this every single week and educate people. And this is why we want you to call and schedule a time to come into the office, because especially at all-time market highs, how much risk are you currently taking right now? Like everybody loves the returns that they're getting this year, but if we go through a downturn, how much downside do you have in your current portfolio the way that you're currently invested right now? And is that something that you can withstand if we go through another downturn like that? And you got to understand what that number it is, because we ask folks when we sit down is, we do go through a big market downturn. I like to say dollar-wise, not percentage-wise, because how much money are you going to be okay with losing?
Right. And I think that's good. And think about it from this. Maybe you were 50 years old in 2007 and the big market, and you were invested aggressively. You did not have somebody on your side. You weren't really thinking about retirement. I mean, you're putting money away and you're like, whew, glad I had some time to recover from that. Well, now you're 62. And now that day is, 2, 3, 4, 5 years away, whatever that may be. It is now the time to start putting those in that money into things that, because now that you're 62, you don't have 12 years to wait for recovery, unless you're just, insanely wealthy, which most people aren't.
And so you can take any 10-year period of time and take the returns, and you can completely reverse it if you're not taking money out of it, and you will have exactly the same amount of money at the end of that 10-year period of time, no matter what order, even if you just completely reverse the order of the returns that came in. So the sequence of returns when you're accumulating for retirement, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is when you are retiring and now you're starting to pull funds from your life savings to fund your lifestyle. That's when the rules change, and nobody talks about that at all. But that's when people get into big problems, as we see a big downturn and you're needing to reach in and take 5% of your money, 6% of your money. So the more the market goes down, the bigger percentage of money you're having to pull out to sustain your lifestyle, right, and you're compounding on your losses. So we could take a big downturn. I mean, you got some serious decisions to make. Either you dramatically change your lifestyle and quit pulling money out from your savings to fund your lifestyle, or you're going to run a good risk of running out of money.
And I bet you've probably seen that happen before.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And then what do you do? And then you're
sometimes I can't help.
Right.
Sometimes I can't help. And, I try to do the best that I can, but the sooner we can try to prevent those things from happening, the better. And it's just by having a well thought out plan. Most people don't have a plan.
And that, and I think this is the time of year when people are starting to think about plans. And we are going to talk about the top 10 New Year's resolutions in our next segment. And that is probably, I know money has got to be on there somewhere. And if not, it should be. 770-545-8881 is how you get your New Year started off right. Man, it's 2020.
2020.
If I'd known I was going to live this long, I'd have taken better care of myself. 770-545-8881, BellaAdvisors.com. Top 10 New Year's resolutions and more great 5-star financial advice coming up right after this. We're so glad you're along with us here at 5-Star Retirement, Bella Advisors. I'm Chris Monroe with Patrick Mueller of Bella Advisors. And 'tis the season now that we're past Christmas and all the wrapping paper and has been kind of gathered up and put into a whole bunch of bags that are sitting out in your front lawn, and the Christmas tree has gotten kind of crispy and it's starting to lose its needles, and because you haven't watered it in a week because you're like, it's okay. Now we turn our attention to not only a new year, but a new decade, and it's always the time when people make the New Year's resolution because, what better time to kind of reset and refocus, at the beginning of a fresh new year and a new start. So any New Year's resolutions for you?
Well, I started a couple of months ago where I always try to work on that stuff throughout the course of the year. I try not to wait until the beginning of the year, but it's always a good time to reflect. And I've got this gratitude jar that I started with my daughter and this high point jar to where when I feel like I've had a high point or something that I'm kind of proud of or something that I accomplished, even if it was like cleaning out the junk drawer or something like that you've been putting off for a long time, it's something good to go throughout the year. And especially when you're feeling down and you don't feel like you're accomplishing a whole lot, you don't feel like you're growing. I mean, that can be a thing that, for me, if I don't feel like I'm growing, I don't like that so much, but you don't want to feel like you're stagnant or moving backwards kind of thing. But it's good to just open that up and kind of look through the stuff that you've written down and reflect back on that and know that you really did accomplish a lot throughout the year. And if it can be kind of trivial or funny or whatever it is that, will crack you up in the future when you do open it up.
Right.
And it's good to reflect on that. But I've got a weight loss competition that's going on right now with a friend of mine. There's like three facets. It's who can lose the most body weight over a 90-day period of time. I'm doing pretty good so far. But I want to kind of keep that consistent in 2020. I gotta drop some pounds. I've got to drop a few myself, and it's easy to when you work a lot and you get out of that, and it's easy to make excuses, And for anything that we do, that are vices, and we'll talk about the top New Year's resolutions, but New Year's resolution is easy to make. It's easy to say, but it's the gym is full on January 6th. Yeah.
It is you can't find a cardio machine, and the weights, the elliptic, everything's taken up. But most people set themselves up to fail with a plan that's not achievable or not sustainable.
That's exactly right. And so people will start and they realize how difficult it is, or they've kind of set themselves up for failure, really, a lot of times. And it's the difference between knowing and doing. And there's actually a really good book on weight loss called Body for Life that came back. I want to say in like the late 90s, early 2000s, right around there. Super good book written by Bill Phillips. And probably the section that resonated the most with me is called Crossing the Abyss, which is exactly what you're talking about. Because if everybody did what they know that they should do, we'd all be billionaires with six packs. But that's not what happens.
That's very true. It is. Well, and it's because the human nature is to be ungrateful and lazy. It's very true. We think that
There's a lot of ungrateful people out there.
Well, and that's what I love what you said about your gratitude jar, because we live in such an amazing place, and it's not perfect, but we are so blessed to live in this country of just untold wealth. And I've traveled a lot. I've traveled abroad. I've been to 10 countries and some poor countries, and just something is for granted for these mega grocery stores that we have on every corner. The land of riches,
where now people will go and shop for you and bring it to your house.
Absolutely, we are beyond spoiled. So my point in that is that gratitude is sometimes difficult because we take so much for granted in our daily lives. So it's it's another thing that I like a lot about you, because one of the things that's is to be grateful. I mean, if you've got let's say you've amassed $500,000 or $250,000 or $200 million, whatever you've been able to save in your lifetime, be grateful for that.
Absolutely. If you can't find anything to be grateful for, right? Just thinking about breathing, right? If you're breathing right now and you don't even have to think about breathing, or your heart, right? Your heart is beating and pumping, everything through your body, and you don't even have to think about it, right? It's just automatically happening for you. And so if you can't think of anything else, right, you can get, things like that you should be super grateful for.
Amen. There's always stuff to be grateful for. And there's always stuff to work on, and here are the top 10 New Year's resolutions, or I don't know, are there 10 there? There might be 2. Okay. All right. So we'll start at the bottom. Number 10 is to drink less of something that, is bad for you, whether that's alcohol or sugar or caffeine. And that makes sense. I mean, I think that probably goes along with weight loss, but we want to drink less alcohol. Probably that's one of the big things is that becomes a vice for some people.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, caffeine, I mean, I could probably drink less alcohol too at different times for sure, especially around the holidays.
Look, I'm in morning radio, so I am exempt from ever having to not drink caffeine. So that's just the way it is. This is not going to happen.
Yeah, I had to quit drinking coffee about 2 years ago because I was drinking so much caffeine that I was giving myself adrenal fatigue, and I was just always tired. I would never get good rest.
Right.
Because of it.
It happens. That's a real thing.
So now I just switched it up and I drink some hot tea.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
Number 9 is to volunteer more. That's a great thing.
That's a really good one.
And you feel, we all want to be paid for what we do today, but man, there's something so gratifying about volunteering and giving back to your community, and whatever that is, what you want to be. Number 8 is to be less stressed. Well, that's kind of a large overarching, it's
a good one.
It is a good one. But I think, it's something you have to work at, it being less stress. Getting your finances in order will take away stress, and simplifying your life. Simplify. One of the things we've all probably heard about Marie Kondo and her, 15 minutes of fame and the whole, spark joy. But it's true. It's I had a thing, and I love alliteration, was simplify and spark joy. Just get rid of the clutter in your house that's just causing. Get rid of the clutter in your life.
I need to do that. Who's this lady's? What's her really name?
Marie Kondo.
I need to have her come out.
Oh, she'll get you up right. She's a little Japanese. What's she like? 4'11" or something. Number 7, travel to new places, which is something I started about 5 years ago, and it really opens up your mind to not only how grateful, how good we have it here in America, but just to see other cultures and immerse yourself in other things that are not, well, we're going to go down to 30A and we're going to go to PCB and we're going to go to Disney World and that's where we're going to spend all our money. And that's fine. Those are fine. But get outside of America and your comfort zone, and you'll be glad you did.
What do you think is your number one place that either you have been to or that you're going to in 2020?
Man, it's so hard. I want to go to Greenland this year coming up.
Oh, interesting.
I've been to some amazing places. I've been to the farthest north inhabited city in the world. That's Longyearbyen. It's in the archipelago of Svalbard, which is a part of Norway.
Oh, wow.
It's at the 78th parallel. Okay, to put that into perspective.
Is that one of those places where it's like only daylight 1 hour a
Nope,
day?
it is completely,
like
well, in the summer, it's daylight 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
When I was there at Christmas, it was polar night. That means no day, like midnight dark, 24 hours a day.
Wow.
Because you're 12 degrees from the North Pole. On the other side, I've been all the way to New Zealand. I went to Russia. That was really cool.
Oh, man. You've been to some pretty cool places.
So, yeah, and I try to go somewhere that's unusual, but it really gets you out of your comfort zone. Spend more time with family is another big New Year's resolution, and you know what? That's an awful good one.
Yeah, and something that I've tried to do, with my parents as they're getting older, and grateful that they're still here, is at least once every 6 months doing some kind of trip with them, or making some kind of experience with them,
Sure.
and getting my daughter, together with them to make sure that we got those memories.
Next is get out of debt and save money, and that's a good one. Obviously, we'll talk about that. Eat healthier in diet. Learn something new, whether that's a new language. Man, I love learning.
That's a good one.
Yeah,
I think that's a good one for like each year.
Absolutely.
Have like a theme for the year of what you're going to learn.
Learn to play an instrument. Learn to speak another language.
I've got one this year. I'm going to learn Krav Maga.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. All right. Well, that's good. That's good. Quit smoking is number 2. And our producers actually said it. Are you still smoking in 2020? But they say it's more addictive than a lot of hard drugs nicotine is to get off of.
And the vaping, right? You got all the vaping
that's become a thing. Well, it's just a delivery system for whatever it is to alter your mind and your body. Number 1B or 2 is lose weight and get fit, which, we're doing and but it's got to be a sustainable plan and you got to start small.
Yep.
But the number 1 New Year's resolution, ladies and gentlemen, is to call Patrick Mueller at Bella Advisors. 770-545-8881, 770-545-8881, bellaadvisors.com. And that is going to help you do a lot of those things on that list. Save money, spend less, sleep better at night, reduce stress, travel to new places.
That's
because
right.
You see what I'm saying?
Uh-huh.
Because now we're working on the tool to do a lot of these things. And imagine how much easier it is in your retirement to do all of those things or many of those things on your list when you know you've got the money in place to do them.
That's right. And you're not worried about what happens in the markets and things like that. I mean, and you can actually focus on the stuff that brings you joy and happiness and weight loss.
I'm sorry, sir. Your credit card has been declined. Well, I had $1 million in the bank. Well, not anymore. I don't know. That's probably pretty severe. But, how much, we'll have to talk about that, how much wealth you've seen wiped out in some portfolios. It's got to be.
Oh, yeah.
Pretty. And we're coming up on a break here.
Yeah, I've got a lot of crazy stories.
I'm sure. We'll talk about those. Of course, questions and answers coming up at the end of the show. But another great segment of 5-Star Retirement is coming up next. Stay with us. All right, welcome back to 5-Star Retirement. We are here for one simple purpose, that is to help you retire with dignity and with comfort and with all the money that you need to do everything that it is that you want to do in your retirement. And for a lot of folks, that's beginning an entirely new chapter of their lives. I'm sure you've seen that a lot with your clients. We've talked about this in previous shows, but the idea of retirement for a lot of people in years past was, there was a pension waiting for them at the end. They got a gold watch or a pin. They got their little party, and then they went home and tinkered around and did this and played bridge once a week. But there wasn't this reinvention of people didn't happen. And a lot of that was because people didn't live that long.
That's right. Most people only live 2 to 5 years after they retired,
right?
Something like that.
And that's kind of what the government, I guess, expected when they developed the whole Social Security.
Mm-hmm.
It's
life expectancy wasn't even what social. It was like 62 back then, and you didn't get your benefits until 65. So most people weren't even living long enough to get their Social Security benefits.
And they were okay with that. The government was.
Yeah,
I'm sure.
because it's all about, to protect yourself from living, right? A very long lifetime and making sure that folks had that money, so they didn't plan on longevity and things coming so far over a short period of time, or they didn't adjust for it over that period of time.
And it depends on whether where you're at on the political spectrum, and that's not where we're ever here to argue. But one of those things that's Social Security was put in at a time in an administration that was to coming out of the Depression, and to make sure that people weren't starving in the streets. And I get that. The problem is when we start these things and they morph into these. What was you said? Is it how much? What's the percentage of the federal budget that goes to entitlements?
75%.
So 3/4 let's say it's a $4 trillion, but $3 trillion go to Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, SSI.
So that 1/4, right, is what Congress is fighting about, every single year.
Right.
So the military funding, every other department of the government is on that remaining 0.25%.
What if people were able to take that money themselves and invest it? There's been a lot of talk over the years about people being able to maintain some of that money or privatizing Social Security in some way, which of course is vehemently fought, by one side and proposed by another. Yeah. Does that make sense? What do you think?
If people did it,
right?
If people did
would
it,
they really do it?
Would they really do it?
Yeah.
And so unfortunately, unless people make it automatic, most people don't. So I think it's probably a pretty good thing. It's just unfortunately the government couldn't keep their hands off of the money. Right? They came into the Social Security Trust Fund and they've been tapping into that for a long time, and we got serious problems that they got to fix on Social Security.
Do you think that, and these are some serious questions, and I know, I'm 47, so there are people in my generation that are saying Social Security won't be around for us when we get ready to retire. Let's say that's in the next 15 to 20 years.
So about 2 years ago, it was by 2034, if they didn't make changes to Social Security, they were going to have to reduce everybody's benefits by 25%. And that's increased up to like 2028 or 2027.
Oh, so it's been moved up now.
It's been moved up.
2028. So we're talking about, that's a long time. No, it's 2020 now almost.
Yeah, exactly.
So we're talking about less than a decade away.
I mean, like 8 years. 8 years from now, they will reduce everybody's benefits by 25%. It's because these politicians, they all just want to keep getting reelected, right? They get reelected and they make the promises and then they do nothing for another 4 years.
There's a lot, and it's a lot of scary things. I mean, so we think about this, what is going to happen with Social Security in years to come, whether that's a decade from now or 5 decades, or, like our production team here is in their 20s. So, you would be talking about drawing Social Security in 40 years. Let me get your opinion. Do you think Social Security will be around for you? So both of them shake their head no and say they're not counting on it. So that means that we're going to have to be more responsible for our path, and where we're going in life, which is kind of really what we should be doing anyway. And having Social Security for more as a safety net for those who need it.
Yeah, exactly. Looking at more like icing on the cake versus counting on it.
And I know for a lot of people, and my father is one of them. I mean, it's his primary source of income.
Yeah,
and I'm sure it is for a lot of people.
Yeah, most folks that I meet with, that's really like their baseline for most folks is their Social Security is their main source of income. Maybe they got a pension coming in, maybe they got some real estate income coming in, but primarily, Social Security is the bulk of it.
What scares you, Patrick? And I know you follow this a lot, so that other people don't have to. There's so much out there right now, and obviously we have a situation in America right now where businesses are doing well, unemployment's at an all-time low, taxes are at a pretty not an all-time low perhaps, but they're down there. We're tax rates have fallen, stock market's an all-time high. But then there's all these things lurking out there. We talk about quantitative easing, which is printing of money to prop things up. And how when I order everything on Amazon, everything today is made in China. Everything. China pretty much owns us now.
Absolutely.
Are these things that kind of keep you up? Is this what, as you look at 2020, and I know, as we said, your crystal ball is as good as everybody else, but these are all things that could come back to hurt us, not the least of which is the gajillion dollar debt or whatever, how many trillions of dollars it is now.
Yeah, so probably the things that concern me, because my clients are either 5 to 10 years away from retiring or retired. And what I get more concerned about than anything is people becoming too complacent. that, oh yeah, you've got these market cycles and not, the past doesn't equal the future a lot of times. Like the things that can happen doesn't necessarily going to make sure it's going to repeat itself. So for an example, like the baby boomer generation, right, started retiring in 2012. You got 10,000 baby boomers a day that are retiring, and that's going to be lasting about, like another 8 or 9 years, right, when they're going to be retiring. So that's a huge movement of the population that moves our economy. So you got a lot of these people who are driving the economy and spending their money. They're no longer going to be spending their money, and they're going to be transferring their wealth to the worst savers in history, right? And so you have these huge demographics that are not going to be coming back again and are going to be changing our market. So you got these long-term trends that are going to be happening, and people aren't paying attention to that stuff. They're just kind of relying on cliche sayings that people kind of spout off, like markets always come back and all these different things. Well, until they don't. But so things are going to change. So the thing that keeps me up at night is people are just becoming way too complacent on where the markets are at. Thinking that you just put your money in the markets and they just always go up, because we haven't seen a downturn since 2008. I mean, it's almost 12 years ago now since we've seen a downturn in the markets. And so people are getting so overly enthusiastic about the stuff that's going on, and they need to be, especially when you're getting close to retiring, about protecting your money from losing. And I'm not down on the markets. I'm just down on people taking way too much risk in the markets, because there's only one. I mean, the things that caused 2008, nobody went to jail, right, for the people who caused 2008 and that big market crash. But the problems have never been fixed. The government's just putting Band-Aids on everything, hoping, the quantitative easing, QE1, QE2, QE3. The Federal Reserve just added another $1.4 trillion, more than the bailout of 2008 last month. And nobody's talking about it because they're not calling it anything. They're just trying to stop us from going into a recession and keep everything going. But there's so much stuff that's going on around the world right now. You've got negative interest rates going on around the world right now.
Exactly. And these are things that I guess the biggest downturn, the granddaddy of all, would have been the Great Depression and the 29 crash. How long did the market stay? How long did the Depression last? Was it the entire decade of the 30s?
18 years.
So it actually lasted almost 2 decades.
Yeah.
So it was really the war that got us out of it, the Second World War, that really pulled us finally out of the Great Depression. And I think we are so complacent today, Patrick, into believing that could never happen again.
Yeah.
We believe that we are so the land of the plenty. I mean, we had people, and I know my grandparents that lived through that. Mm-hmm. They were savers and they were frugal because they knew what it was like to have nothing.
Yes.
And I'm afraid that I put all of us in this. Your generation, my generation, our producers, we are so spoiled to believing that those old grainy videos from the 20s and 30s, that could never happen again. That's old history. But it really could. And now we've got things that are in the mix that weren't even thought of then. I mean, the international part of this, the level of debt that we're sustaining, as a country that could come crashing down. It's kind of stuff that's pretty scary.
It is. When you look at the amount of debt that's going on around the world, it's insane. I mean, China has twice as much debt as we got. You talked about China owning us, right? They got twice as much debt as we got right now. So things are just crazy around the world. I mean, just a few years ago, if you remember Greece, with them having their problems, and who would think a country like Greece would cause our markets to go into turmoil? So it's all interconnected today. It's all interconnected now. So it only takes, it's what I call like a little bomb. There's like all these little bombs that could go off out there, whether it's student loan debt, whether it's, a number of different things, like all these derivatives that caused 2008 to be an issue with all the real estate debt. So there's so many little things that are going on out there, and the media drives things so much too. And then you got high frequency trading. This is the stuff that's crazy now, is that probably over 80% of the trades that are done in the markets are done by computers set up on algorithms that these big Wall Street companies put lines down that where they could see if you put a trade in, and the computers can pick up on that and put a trade in before your trade goes in.
And I promise we have not gone to this segment to press you and make you feel terrible about the future. Honestly, we just want you to think about the pitfalls that could happen in this decade, and that if you've got 10 years or 5 years or 3 years for retirement, and especially the closer you are, is to get in and see Patrick right now. first of the year, New Year's resolution, top one, 770-545-8881, 770-545-8881, or BellaAdvisors.com, and we will answer some of your questions and more coming up next on 5 Star Retirement. And welcome back to 5 Star Retirement. It is our final segment of the show. We're so glad that you're with us wherever you are watching us or listening to us from. Use an email address? I'd love to, if people are watching us, I'd love for them to drop us a line and be able to say just, hello, I'm listening from, we love your show, that kind of thing.
Yeah, you can do it right from the website, or you can just, the email address is retire@bellaadvisors.com.
Okay. And I'd just love to, if you're watching us, if you forwarded this on to somebody, if you've shared it with somebody, if it's helped you, maybe some topics you'd like to see covered.
Yeah,
we'd love to get some feedback from our listeners as
questions, topics.
Yeah, questions. It's we get a lot of questions that that come in that way. And we were talking a little bit before the break about the amount of money that you've saved some people, before, and I bet you've probably seen a lot that with your clients, some of your stories.
Yeah. Well, I mean, some people, through different downturns, probably I've heard more stories kind of through the tech bubble when stuff just kind of disappeared, where things were just over evaluated and companies just kind of disappeared and their stock disappeared and things like that, like Enron. And
I remember that. And I was going, and this was back during the companies that had like literally all of the normal metrics for stocks. I mean, valuations and
you're starting to see that
PE
stuff again.
ratios and all of that were just thrown out the window. And it's like, okay, well, ABC.com is worth $6 trillion and the stock is now worth $100 a share. It's like, based on what?
Yeah, this company has no positive earnings.
There's no earnings.
And they have a $200 stock price.
Right. And you're right. That came crashing down. I mean, and who were the lone survivors of that? Amazon was one of the originals. Google,
Amazon, Apple.
Yeah. But there's only a handful. And there were, the websites didn't go away, but a lot of companies went away overnight. So, that's one of the things that we talk about is that, and we've really touched on in this show quite a bit, is how much things can change. We look forward to 2020. We look forward with amazing optimism. I know I do. We have a lot to be thankful for, a lot of gratitude, but there are so many things that can take a nest egg that is taken you decades to build that could be wiped out or severely damaged in a matter of hours.
Absolutely. Very quickly. Very quickly things can change and cause the markets to go in a downward spin. And if you got your money in the wrong stuff, that could really affect you. And that's why it's so important to have a plan. And you got to have a written plan. So I'll ask folks this, because usually, if you have like back when more of a traditional couple where the husband took care of the finances and the wife stayed home and took care of the kids and things like that. Right. And a lot of times you see the reverse of that. It's not always the case, but sometimes you have the wife who takes care of the finances and things can be kind of reversed. But I'll ask folks, where is your plan? And then most guys, they'll just kind of point at their head like, well, it's in my head. Okay, well, if something happens to you, how is your spouse going to take care of themselves if something happens to you?
Right.
How much money is going to be left, right? What's going to replace your income? And I was sitting down with this one gentleman not too long ago, and he had it was a second marriage, and the kids thought that the wife was a gold digger, right? And the wife didn't want anything. She's like, I don't really want anything. And he was like, well, I'm going to set $500,000 aside to, in case something happens to me. But if something happened to him, right, they lose one of the Social Securities, and she keeps the higher of the two Social Securities, and their main source of income was from a pension, but there was no survivorship benefit left for her for the pension. So she went from, basically having about $100,000 a year in income down to maybe about 25 or 30. And so if he leaves her $500,000 and her lifestyle is $80,000 a year, how long is that money going to last? And
right.
And I picked that up probably within the first 15 minutes when we started talking. And he didn't bring the wife in for the visit because he's the one who handles all the finances. I said, that's great, but what if something happens to you? And I can see this immediately of what's going to happen. And then he just had like this pale look on his face. He's like, you're so right. He was like, you're so right. It's not going to be enough. He goes, it sounded like a lot of money.
Right.
When
in today's standards,
when put that plan together.
$500,000 is not that much money.
It really isn't.
I mean, when you're talking about a life expectancy of 10, 20, 30 years.
Exactly.
Just divide that, do the basic math. And that's it's not a lot of money. Let's get to some questions from you. Sandy in Midtown says, I plan to retire midway this year at 65, or 2020, we should say. It's almost a year. I have $210,000 in my 401k, a $3,000 pension payment that I will expect along with Social Security benefits. Should I use my 401k to pay off a mortgage that would cut my living expenses in half? The interest on the mortgage is 4.5%. I think I probably know your answer because we've had this question a lot.
Did she say how much the mortgage was?
She did not. Oh, no, she did. $85,000.
Yeah. So what you got to realize, if you're pulling money from an IRA account or a 401k account, that it's all tax deferred money. It's all income taxes that you have been deferring paying for a long time. So a lot of times it's people's number one asset. And so if you pull all that money out, she'd be pulling $85,000 worth of taxable income out. That's going to add to her pension. That's going to add to the Social Security. So that alone is going to cause her to be taxed on her Social Security benefits, like that alone. And she's still going to have to pay taxes on that $85,000. So she's probably going to pull out more like $100,000 or $110,000, right, to net the $85,000 that she needs to pay the mortgage off. So probably not the smartest thing to do,
especially with a low mortgage balance like that.
Exactly.
I mean, you're
the
down
payment can't be a whole lot, and
4.5%.
Pay it off over time.
I mean, it's not like it was back in the early '80s when mortgage rates were 17%.
Exactly, 4%. They're so low right now.
And by the way, that's something we don't even talk about. What happens? What happens when that ever happens again? Which it could.
Oh man,
we just expect that. I mean, I see all these houses for starting from the 1 millions in Atlanta. I'm like, okay, that's great, but who can really afford that if there wasn't all this cheap money out there, or the jumbo loans and that kind of thing?
That too. And if you think about like the fiscal health of the United States and all the debt, right? When interest rates start going back up to norms of 4%, 5%, 6%, just the interest is going to exceed $1 trillion a year.
And I promise we are not trying to be doom and gloom here. No. We
are sounding very doom and gloom.
But it's just reality, folks, as we turn the calendar into a new year. All right, this is an unusual question from Mindy in Lilburn, who wants to know, is there a type of financial advisor I should consult to determine the optimal drawdown strategy to minimize taxes in retirement? Do some advisors like yourself specialize in drawdown versus accumulation phase of retirement planning?
That's a really good question. And absolutely. You want to be working with somebody who focuses and works only with people who are retiring or very close to it. And that's kind of the problem in the industry, is that it should be kind of like a doctor, where if you go to a doctor, if you say you had a general doctor, right, your whole lifetime, and then you reach a certain age and you start having heart problems, right, and you need open heart surgery, that doctor is probably not going to go, you know what, you've been with me for so long, Chris, and I've never performed open heart surgery, but I'd really like to give it a shot.
That'd be a good skit for a Netflix series, or I don't know.
So they're going to give you a referral to go to see the specialist.
Sure.
And you're going to go see the specialist. And that's what you want to do when you're 5, 10 years away from retiring, is you need to start working with a retirement specialist. And you want to work with somebody who's considered a fiduciary. So somebody that actually has a legal responsibility to do what's in your best interest. So somebody's got to have a Series 65 or a Series 66 investment advisor license to be considered a fiduciary. So don't let somebody just tell you they're a fiduciary. Ask them if they got a Series 65 or 66. And if they don't, then they're not held to that fiduciary standard.
And so, again, that is your specialty, obviously, is not the accumulation, is the drawdown strategy.
It's the drawdown, because the rules change. And, when you think about mountain climbing, most people, when they don't survive climbing a mountain, it's on the way down. It's not on the way up.
Right.
And so that's what we specialize in. It's a big difference when you're retiring and now you need all this money to last the rest of your lifetime, because you pretty much reached the pinnacle of what you're going to reach in your lifetime when you retire. And now it's more about protecting that money from losing and creating the income that you need to maintain your lifestyle for whatever you want that to look like for as long as you live and as long as your spouse lives, and make sure you got a written plan for that and they know how they're going to take care of themselves.
Yeah, great question. Thanks for that question, Mindy. And Norman in Atlanta says, I'm 64. I plan to retire in June of 2020. A lot of folks are right at that, they're getting ready to get out of the workforce now.
It's a solid year, 2020.
2020. It is. It just feels right, doesn't it? So I have $300,000 in my 401k, about $2,000 a month in real estate income. What else should I do before I sign up for retirement? Well, that's a great question, Norman. And I mean, there's a lot you should do, right? A part of the 5 stars and that's about as far as probably people think, isn't it?
Yes.
I mean, I've got this amount of my 401k and I've got this pension or this, investment income or whatever, period.
Yeah. And if I pull out this much out a year, I should be all right.
Right.
Yeah.
And again, we talk about the field with all the buried landmines and wells that are hidden and people fall down them every day. And so what would you say to Norma coming in and see you?
Absolutely. Whether it's me or somebody else who specializes in, retirement planning. And so you got to sit down with somebody and there's nothing bad with understanding where you're at. And that's what people are kind of scared of a lot of times. It's like people don't get a will or put something like that together because they think they're going to die as soon as they do it. Right. So it's those kind of things those things we have in our own mind that kind of block us from doing things. But it's a pretty short process, and we try to make it a lot of fun. But understanding where you're at and where you're going in the future, and if there's stuff you need to be watching out for. So for all of our listeners today, if you give us a call in the next 15 minutes, call up and schedule a free analysis. We'll do this free analysis for you. We'll do a free stress test. We'll understand where you're at and where you're headed in the future. And there's going to be stuff that you're doing that's great. Keep continuing to do those things. And then if there are problem areas, I'm going to point those things out. And these would be things that I'd be fixing if I were you. If we can help you with those things, that's great. If you want to keep doing the stuff you're doing yourself, that's okay too. But don't let that be a barrier to you coming in, understanding where you're at. Give us a call, 770-545-8881. Again, that is 770-545-8881. You've probably been putting this stuff off a long time. You need to get on top of it. What a better time to do it than the beginning of the year, 2020.
Amen.
And
new year, new you, right? I mean, this is the time to do it. And
that's right.
If it weren't for human nature, we'd be all so much more successful and organized. But pesky human nature gets in the way, doesn't it, of putting things off and burying our heads in the sand. Patrick, another great show.
Absolutely.
And, want to really give blessings out for a great new year for everybody. We certainly hope that this is going to be an amazing year for us as we start a new year and a new decade together. And we hope you'll join us again. Share and like this video, please, and join us again next time for 5 Star Retirement.